Welcome to What Makes You Tick Best Bits. Campbell Williams is one of my favourite people on this planet. He's a bit of a genius, and anything to do with marketing, commercial operations, scaling and buying and selling businesses, he understands from deep lived experience. And this Best Bits episode, we've taken about a 15-minute section of the main podcast that we did together, and we've brought it for you to enjoy. It's all about positioning. It's all about how to make customers love you, standing out, being different, all the things that we try to do when we build businesses, but we get into the psychology, how it happens, how it works, and really practical things that you can do differently. You're going to love this episode. Enjoy.
Another thing that I look at with people a lot is like horizontal versus vertical markets.
Okay.
So are you a horizontal product that like applies to everybody, right? Everybody needs a CRM or an internet access pipe or whatever it might be, or are you trying to go on an industry sort of level? And often businesses assume that they have to be a vertical play or play lip service to it. So the dreaded industries drop down that's got 20 different, it's like if you're in 20 different industries, you're not a vertical play. It's just topped and tailed by somebody like me has put some marketing fluff in the first paragraph, then it's the same, and then some marketing fluff in the bottom paragraph, and nobody ever reads those pages.
Yeah.
And I have a standing bet with people, and I've never lost this bet. If you've got like 10 plus industries on your website, said, I guarantee you they are the lowest viewed pages on your top nav. I guarantee you. And then we fire up Google Analytics and it's not even close.
Yeah.
And it's like, unless you have deep sector expertise, probably in technology, like real vertical integration into the line of business software and understanding of processes and really how you can make that industry and only that industry work differently with your software, then it just doesn't matter. You're a horizontal play. You're way better off talking about use cases. You're way better off talking about scenarios, use cases, and outcomes, because that's what people are buying. That's the pain, that's the medicine, that's the feel good, the transformation. That's a way more important thing to talk about than just paying lip service to industry type things. So sometimes it's helpful to arrange your go-to-market or your sales engine around verticals, because it's just easier if you can talk the language in the business in that vertical. Sometimes it can work against you. I had in a recent company I was CCO at, they had specialisms in a couple of public sector areas, and we lost several deals because in social housing, because they said, we don't want to be like every other housing association, so we're going to go with somebody who's never worked in that sector before. Because it can be disadvantageous to say, look at all the customers I've got in your sector. And again, true story, when again that business I co-founded back in 2011 and we exited a few years later, I spent a few years running the transformation team, integration team, getting it ready for exit. And part of that transformation stuff, we were shopping for a CPQ tool, configure, price, quote. Really cool stuff, because as I said, we had a quote tool already. We wanted a badass one. So I did some long listing, because again, I find it great fun to put my buyer hat on, because I can use the hunter turned gamekeeper thing to go, look, I've been out there buying software, and this is how I long list people, and this is the process we went through. Yeah. I helped with long listing, then I turned it over to my experts because I was completely unqualified to add any value, and they were assessing things functionally, technically, and then shortlisted companies came and pitched to us. And one of those companies kind of did the standard kind of opening cred, history, logos, verticals, and they were like, we've got several customers in your space. And I was like, let me stop you right there. For one thing, if you try and explain to me why you know more about my industry than I do, you're going to piss me off. You're going to make assumptions that are wrong. But fundamentally, like, I know that guy and that guy really, really well. They're really big competitors. I don't want to be the same or just as good as them. I want to be better than them.
Yeah.
But you know what? Come back to your other slide with the industries. What are Ferrari doing with a configure, price, quote tool? Because the top end of B2C luxury retail, that stuff could easily end up downstream a couple of years later in B2B tech. I want to be ahead of it.
Yeah, I
So
love
don't tell me what you're doing with other with my industry. Tell me what you're doing with other industries and how you can help me be the best and the most unique. Not that you can qualify the word unique. I hate it when I do that.
it.
But tell me how I can stand out from the crowd. So
Yeah.
again, getting that vertical thing can be quite nuanced. Whereas I recognize use cases and scenarios like
Mm,
that's the problem I face. I don't
yeah.
recognize, are you in this industry? Yes, I know all your problems.
Yeah.
Okay. Chances are you don't. And by the way, I don't need to hear it from a sales guy at a software business what my challenges are. I'm fully aware of them. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
But can you tell me what the use cases are that resonate with me, and therefore what you can do to help, and the outcomes, and so on?
I love it. I've never heard anyone describe it that way ever. And it's brilliant and it makes so much sense. And I've definitely made that mistake. Luckily, I don't have industry drop downs on my website and my use cases need to be updated.
Mm.
But the amount of times that I've seen those websites, goodness me. It reminded me also that Jay Abraham talks about funnel vision versus tunnel vision. And
Yeah.
he talks about how most businesses are obsessed with them and their like closest competitors. And we have to win against them. So they're just always like stealing each other's people, stealing each other's ideas, stealing each other's customers. They're just obsessed with trying to win that game. But Jay Abraham says if you go for funnel vision and you look out who are the best in the world at doing this thing, and he's written a book called The 93 Referral Systems, where he's literally gone and interviewed all these different industries around the world and gone, how do dentists get referrals? How do manufacturers get referrals? How do garages get referrals? Because they live off referrals as businesses, a lot of these like type small mom and pop shops. But the idea could be so simple that if you plug that into a different environment, it could be completely revolutionary. And the idea that you would go, oh, what a Ferrari doing is brilliant because it's the same way you're going, well, if I could get Ferrari's brand marketing person to
Yeah.
come and do a workshop with us, we will learn things that every, all the sales trainers and marketing consultants that go around the industry and charge big bucks to go and teach us stuff. If everyone's learning the same stuff, how on earth are you going to be different and like spark a completely random idea that you could connect in your own brain? And I guess that's what you're looking for, right? If you're in a business, you're not looking, like you say, you're not looking for someone to come in and go, here's how your market operates. You're going, give me an idea that I might not have thought of, because I will know as the expert how to connect that in my own business. So you're sort of bringing them interesting things rather than telling them how they should do it, right?
Well, exactly, and it's working out where that common ground is, and it's not just you with them; it's them with the rest of their potential peer group.
Mm.
And what you were just saying there reminded me of at 6 Degrees. Again, as is always the case with these sort of when you're one of the founders, one of the leadership teams, you have an idea of things that you want to do, you end up just going, I'll do it, I'll start it, I'll run it, sort of thing. And in the sort of second phase of our evolution, I wanted to take customer experience really, really seriously. So I sort of started and ran the customer experience team. It was mainly to look after our sort of top 100 customers who were staggeringly high number. I think it was half of our revenue was our top 100 customers. And one of the things I wanted to do was build a customer community. And I realized pretty quickly that to build a really good community, I needed a really good inner sanctum. So I found a bunch of really friendly customers. We booked a nice restaurant at the West End for a boozy lunch. We all had too much wine, and I found out what they really thought about things. One of the things that they thought was, again, they don't care about the industries that other people are in. They have more in common with those who are the same sizes of organizations. So again, our sweet spot was mid-market, 100 to 1,000, particularly around 500. And we had a lot of those customers that were in that box buying similar sorts of solutions from us. But the other thing that I learned from them was that they cared way more about our people and our culture than I ever gave them credit for. And I'll always remember exactly who it was, CIO at an insurance business. And I was like, well, why? I said, it's like, but if you look after your people really well and you've got a really strong culture, they're going to stay and they're going to deliver really good service to us.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa. That's really obvious, but really awesome.
Yeah.
And shortly thereafter, when again, as part of heading towards exit, we did a big rebrand. big rebrand, went much bigger, much bolder than we had done before because we thought we'd earned the right by then. And a new website, it was like, I wanted 40% of the website to be sort of talking about people and culture.
Yeah.
Because I thought that mattered to people way, way more than and I binned off all the vertical stuff. I was like, we're in every vertical, who cares? But who are the people who are looking after you? So the About Us video became all about our people, not all about our products. And I think that's one of the things, again, trying to get the balancing right between three things, CX, PX, EX, customer experience, product experience, employee experience. A lot of product businesses obsess only about the PX side of things, and understandably so, right? It's their IP. They think it's the most valuable thing they've got. I've worked in a lot of businesses and worked with a lot of businesses where they're kind of, maybe they're more of a reseller or they're packaging up other things, and it's like they have to lean much more heavily on the customer experience. So it's like but they both, and in fact all three, profoundly matter to your customer and your prospect. Just talking about the product piece is not enough. They are evaluating, how do you onboard me? How do you look after me? Are your processes robust? Who is your team? How do you do service management? They don't really care that much about account management because they know that just means sales. The same account manager. I'll be your account manager. I don't care. You're just trying to sell me something. Who's my service manager? Who's my customer success manager? Who's going to help me when there are problems?
Yeah.
The CX matters at least as much as the product experience. The product working and doing what it was supposed to do when I bought it is like, that's hygiene factor stuff, right? Yeah. The minimum expectation I've got is that the damn thing works and that you patch it for security when there's a security threat and so on. Yeah. And actually the employee experience, so that you can tell me that you've got, really high levels of loyalty in your stuff. Again, most people just focus their marketing on the product experience. Slightly better at the customer experience and quite often very little on the employee experience. To me, marketing we should be better at internal marketing anyway. But I loved it at 6 Degrees when it was like, when people would tell me they just loved the brand and the culture and being part of that journey, even though it was chaotic. And you've got to have the right people for it as well. That we used to say that to people quite openly at interviews. It was like, if you're come from, if you're used to quite a sort of quiet space where nothing much changes month to month, let alone week to week or day to day, don't come and work here. We're doing lots of M&A, we're buying businesses, we're integrating businesses, we're doing crazy stuff, we're running really, really quickly. So you've got to be willing to embrace that. It's going to be the most exciting journey you ever go on, but it's not going to be easy. And again, along similar lines to something that one of your podcast guests had talked about, of like, there was, I've also seen occasions where we've made the mistake of hiring the person from the large corporate.
Yeah, 100%.
Because you're trying to bring that process sophistication and maturity, and you just watch. They go a little bit Inspector Dreyfus dealing with that, and we're Inspector Clouseau. Because like, what do you mean you haven't got established processes and systems and maturity and standards? And it's like, no, we're making the stuff as we go along. We're changing the wheel on the car, driving at 70 miles an hour on the motorway. You've got to have the right animal to embrace that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's such a key factor. One of the biggest criteria that founders who know what they're talking about ask me is, we want someone with some stage experience. Like, we're on this 5 to 10 million journey. We'd love someone that's been there before, because they know the patterns that they're going to face are going to be much, much higher. Whereas if you're going, we are a identity security management company, so we want to go after someone from like CrowdStrike. I'm going, well, you're trying to not be CrowdStrike. You're trying to take on you're trying to take them on. You have to be a bit different. I was just wondering, so you said something at the start, which is about the 4 Ps, and then you said which lead to the 5th P of positioning. I imagine that a lot of businesses start by asking, what is our positioning? So they start with the 5th P. And I'm just wondering, in your experience, what are the things that they're missing? Positioning
is a great topic. And again, one of the bits that I haven't talked about that's the most fun for me is doing the sort of market analysis, particularly the competitor analysis.
Okay, yeah.
Because you really have to take a 3-dimensional view on positioning. It's what you want to send out there, but it's also how are you regarded and where do you sit in the market landscape? Yeah. Because ultimately the positioning has to lead to differentiation. Might not be full USPs, because there's a golden rule in life. If you are genuinely unique and you have a product or a thing or a feature that nobody else has got, you better make the most of it, because if there's not other people in that market within a year, you're in the wrong market, right? Nobody follows a new product if nobody buys it. So if you are successful, you will have bigger and uglier competitors very soon. So it's differentiation on software as well as hardware things is crucial. And that, as I say, I love the competitive positioning piece, because as I say to both customers and employees or employers, is like doing that exercise of looking at maybe half a dozen of your closest competitors and a couple of other people in this sort of tangential peer group, and then benchmarking you against them. I guarantee you, nobody will ever have done that in your business. I never did it in any business that I was part of. I said, but you know who does? Prospects. So how you stack rank side by side in the same moment when somebody is doing the classic Googling and long listing, and because again, when I've been long listing suppliers, I ask for referrals and I talk to people I know. I'll ask a question on LinkedIn, but I also do some Googling. Yeah. I'll look for some lists of the top 10 agencies in whatever it might be. So I'll approach people cold, and they might win. And I have given cold people, the people who I found on Google have got business out of me versus people referred to by people I trust, because I'm making I'm keeping my own counsel. So that point about how do you position against them, it usually makes it a lot easier to have the conversation about, and now you need to change. Mm-hmm. I was very proud. One of my proudest little moments with it was a MarTech business I was helping them with a $30 million Series A that had a $20 million follow on and led very quickly to a $60 million Series B. It's a great business. Their CEO was suitably chastened when I showed a bunch of competitor websites and then basically picked his website apart. He was like, I can't live in this world. He was going to do a website refresh in 6 months. He brought it forward to we're doing it immediately, and I'm not going to push ahead with the fundraise until we've made some significant improvements on this, because I can't have would-be investors doing it, because you're running so quickly. Yeah. And I had that constantly in my businesses, that I wish I could go back and revisit the website because it doesn't reflect who we are right now, but I haven't got time to do it. Yeah, 100%. I could have possibly done with some external help to do it, but there you go. And again, and the final point on that positioning is, I also love doing customer research. Yeah. And interviewing customers, because not enough people do it. I'm being very guilty of that myself. I have, that expression, I can never remember if it's Gary Player or Arnold Palmer, but the more I practice, the luckier I get. Yeah. I say the more customers I talk to, the smarter I seem to become. Yeah. And I did we did a project in one of my little agency businesses with it's a multi-billion-dollar publicly listed fintech business that did one project in EMEA, that it got to the North American organization, and it was like, what do you mean our marketing's crap? But it caused shockwaves. And they were like, what do you mean our customers are saying these things about it? And then they paid us to do a deeper dive into customers, because they could not believe that their product positioning and marketing messaging was so misaligned with what their customers thought. Yeah. And that's really quite common. That's the sort of other dimension of positioning. It's not just what do you want to put out there. It's not just where you set the market, but it's how do your customers actually perceive what you do? Because that's the reality. When they're talking to your prospects, when their prospects are doing reference calls, that's what they're going to say. So it's either what you want it to be, or there's something out of whack in your positioning. But you've got to have that 3-dimensional view to get that positioning piece right.
What are some of your favorite ways of taking what you learn from customers and then turning that into proposition and positioning? So let's say a founder is going to go out there and get the real life view in the words of their customers of how they're perceived and what they do and all these interesting questions that you've raised. How could they turn that into value?
Yeah, I think that's really a really good question. He said, spinning his wheels, trying to think of a really good answer. But I think a lot of where that value comes is that suddenly you've realized what your differentiators are. Mm. Because a lot of businesses have a good sense of what their differentiators are, and it's just a bunch of Me Too stuff. And actually hearing from the customer why they bought from you in the first place,
Yeah.
what they like about you, and why they stayed and why they bought more. Those are your differentiators.
Yeah.
Especially if they've bought stuff from other people, and actually making that part of your messaging. It doesn't have to be 2,000 word, 5-page case studies. It can be, really, really punchy quotes and testimonials and stats and things that, here's the value that we got out of this business. We got a 300% return on investment.
Yeah.
We like numbers. We're, as humans, we're built to believe numbers and distrust words.
Yeah.
So big call out numbers, I'm always a big fan of in pitch decks and presentations and so on. But it's helping you to crystallize what your value is in the customer's own words.
Yeah.
Because again, quotes and case studies, I hate it when I have to make them up because the customer says, "Can you just make something up?" Because it's like the stuff I wrote down when I was interviewing you that you actually said, that's way more real than I could ever come up with. I'm a pretty good writer, but you sound like you.
Yeah.
You sound honest and sincere. And if other IT directors of similar sized businesses are facing similar types of challenges, well, then it'll resonate. They'll recognize themselves. It's back to those R's again. So it's trying to take those little nuggets and crystallize it into something that makes the messaging powerful and relevant to those audiences that you're going after, so that they recognize themselves. And again, it's the reassurance that other people have faced those challenges and you've helped them overcome them.
Yeah.
Because one of the most fundamental positioning and messaging mistakes people mistake is the story brand stuff, that the customer's the hero, you're the guide. Too many businesses want to make themselves the hero.
Yes.
And it's that whole me too. It's me. Look how great I am. No, it should be you. It should be, here's how we can help. We've walked this path before. We know the way. You've got to be Gandalf, not Frodo, or Obi-Wan, not Luke Skywalker. Pick your favorite hero going on a hero. There's a reason why the hero's journey is such a staple of cinema. And a classic 3-act structure. You've got to be taking them on that. It's not about you, it's about them.
Yeah.
It's about making them better at their jobs, about helping their businesses to be more successful. It's about adding value to them. You're just the enabler. Don't talk about yourself, talk about them and how you can help them. That's a fundamental piece when it comes to positioning and messaging.
It's like you said, isn't it? How do we help that CIO to, win in their business? And I love it. It's such a good thing. I've developed a bit of a hack for this, which is the podcast. I massively road test new product ideas and positioning with guests, right? And then they'll be like, "Oh, that's like that," And then I've got these wonderful quotes. So I've just launched this thing called the multiplier matrix. This is I'm not trying to use your pod to pitch my thing, but I think it will tie nicely in. It will tie nicely into the topic, which is, I was like, recruitment is all the same. There's 27,000 recruitment businesses. How on earth do I stand out? Yeah, I've got 17 years of being a tech leader, responsible for revenue. But again, so other people could do that. And I'm going, actually, I think a lot of people overcomplicate this. I've got this way of defining people as 4 types: adders, subtractors, multipliers, and dividers. And everyone can understand that conceptually, and it's very simple to put into a model. But I've spoken to, 20 different guests about that model, and just got the reaction of people and what they've said. And then I've used those quotes and asked them for permission to then put that onto the assets that I'm building around it. And the language that they've used to describe the thing that I thought of and what it means to their business and what a divider was when they made that mishire. And when they hired a multiplier, the impact they made. And when they hired someone who was just more of an adder, why they were disappointed and why that wasn't a success for them. The language that they've given me is infinitely better than I could possibly have ever come up with, because they're giving me their own use cases of it.
Yeah.
And then when I use the quotes to tell other people about what the connections that people have made through this very simple model, I've now got something that I think is completely revolutionary and wonderful in the market. But if I'd spent time just myself trying to write that, or maybe got my team of people and we'd got around in a room and done an offsite to try and brainstorm all the things that we think the market needs and why this is different, it would have been crap. And I just it made me think about how that you can create situations like a drunken lunch in the West End, or you could create a podcast. And what are some other ideas where you could create scenarios where you can get that feedback from customers?
Oh, I think that's awesome. I mean, what you've done there effectively is that you have kind of codified your own IP.
Yeah.
You have reframed the problem into more of a, scenarios and use cases, and you're using somebody's previously negative experience against the competition.
Yeah.
You have framed the current pain points with traditional recruitment, explained how you can transform that, and they can imagine how happy they'd feel because now they've got people who are adding value as opposed to subtracting value. What does a multiplier do? Okay, I get that. Suddenly you're different.
Yeah.
Because again, you've already crossed the Rubicon in terms of your own differentiation, and maybe you add the podcast. Then again, you're sending the message that you're well connected, that you're putting stuff and thought leadership out there into the world, even though there's no direct, path to sort of revenue.
Yeah.
Although there clearly is an indirect path to revenue, and I think that's all sort of fantastic. What was the question again?
I love that. I might have to use that in my marketing. But it is so true. If you can simplify the problem and then get other people to say it's a wonderful thing.
Thank you for listening and watching this Best Bits short. If you like this, tune in next Sunday for our next special part of our favorite episodes. And if you love the main podcast, every Thursday, we introduce you to a new virtual mentor so you can hear their career story and answers to the biggest questions in tech. See you on the next episode.